Hi, I'm Jay Thomas, and welcome to Bald Tires, proud member of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. This week, the episode is with Jim Kerr. Now, last week we did part one with Jim, where we talked about his amazing career as an automotive journalist and as an automotive instructor at Sask Polytech. If you missed that episode, take a listen. It's going to be just in front of this one, in the same place you found this podcast. Today, though, we're talking with Jim about a couple of cars in his garage right next to us, a 64 Impala SS and a 1957 Ford Thunderbird he's owned for a lot of years. Some great stories to come, so stick around. This is Bald Tires, because when you make great memories, you make bald tires. The Saskatchewan Podcast Network is supported by Connexus. Does money spark joy in your life or cause you stress? If you said stress, you're not alone. For 42% of Canadians, their biggest stressor comes from money. At Connexus, they care about your financial well-being. Money doesn't have to be stressful, and Connexus is here to help. The Connexus #MoneyTalk blog provides expert advice, tips, and solutions for all life stages and events. Getting married, buying a house, budgeting, saving, they cover it all and more. And did I mention it's free? Check it out today at connexusmoneytalk.ca and start feeling confident and stress-free about your money. The Saskatchewan Podcast Network is also supported by Direct West. Is marketing getting in the way of running your business? Direct West has local, expert teams right here in Saskatchewan that will work with you to build your website exactly how you imagine it. Let them help you improve your online presence and head to directwest.com to learn more.
Let's talk about a couple of these cars that are in the shop right here with us right now. So to your right is the 64 Impala SS, right?
Yes.
So where did you find this car?
It's actually a local Saskatoon car.
It is, okay.
Sold as SMP in the GM dealer in town here.
Wow, and it is a true SS.
Yes, yeah.
So it's not an imitation or a mock-up of that, right?
No, it's a true SS.
So what's under the hood?
It's got a newer 350 Vortec engine.
Okay.
I built this car for fuel economy, touring, cruising.
Okay.
So everything on it is built for fuel economy and just ride comfort.
So you, as I understand it, this thing was taken completely apart.
Yes, yeah. I was fortunate when I was at Sask Polytechnique that once the auto body students take in a vehicle once a year and just redo it over. And I had the vehicle here running and licensed and so on. And I got a phone call saying, we've had a cancellation. If you can have the vehicle here in 2 weeks, we'll do the body on it.
And did it need the body doing?
It definitely had some rust in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the part of the body program there is they don't fix rust. They replace complete panels. Because that's the way they fix new cars. So
that's right.
They use the same technique on an old car as they would on a new car. And they would only take cars that new panels were available for.
Yeah, like an Impala, obviously there's new panels available. But like I've got my 69 Buick. There's almost none.
That's right.
You pretty much can't get reproduction.
So they wouldn't work on that car at all.
Right,
because
right.
Fixing rust really doesn't have a lot of training potential for what they do in industry. But putting a quarter panel on a 64 Chev or putting a quarter panel on a brand new car is virtually the same technique.
Yeah, different, completely different style, but the technique is the same.
That's right.
Style of metal is what I mean, but the work they actually
panels,
yeah,
how they weld it together, the seam sealers they use, everything is the same technique.
Right. So what all was replaced in this car?
Oh, it's had major work.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. The floor pan has been replaced underneath the whole car. It wasn't bad, but there were a few holes. And you can get a complete floor pan for the car with the inner rocker panels and so on.
Wow.
So it's an expensive part, but it's a whole sub-assembly with the braces already welded in as it should be. And
holy cow.
And put in. It commonly rusts around the trunk pan and the body mounts at the back, so they were all put in. It's had both rear quarters put on.
Cool.
Yeah. And doors have been replaced on it.
The doors were replaced.
Yeah.
Completely replaced or reskinned?
Completely replaced.
Wow.
Although I think I would reskin it another time.
Would you?
Yeah. The door panel or the door shells themselves, some of the holes on the inside where things bolt into weren't quite in the right position. It's taken quite a few hours to re-drill or file holes and so on, getting everything fitting right. But
That's pretty common though for aftermarket pieces not to be exact fit.
That's right. Yeah. Many of the dies that they use aren't exactly the same as the factory, and there's some real cheap knockoffs. You try and buy the quality parts, but some parts there's just nothing available. You have to buy the cheap parts.
Have to take what you can get.
Yeah.
Basically. So they did all that work, and then it was painted a beautiful. Like that's just jet black, right?
That's the original color of the car.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
It came from SMP. It's called Tuxedo Black.
Yep.
And it had the red interior in it.
It's so sharp looking. It's a two-door hardtop, so when you roll the windows down, you've got no B pillar, just an A and a C,
yeah.
And still has the little what do we call them? Quarter windows in the front.
Yes, yeah,
right.
Vent windows.
The vent windows. It's a bucket seat car.
Right, all the SSs were a bucket seat car
with a console in the middle.
Yeah, the SS wasn't a high performance option; it was a trim option.
And that's still in some cases the same thing they do now with some things.
Yes, yeah,
right,
yeah. In fact, out at the farm, we still have a parts car out there, a '64 Impala SS.
Oh, really?
Yes, which was an original 6-cylinder 2-speed automatic car.
So not a mover, 6-cylinder 2-speed, yeah.
But it came with the bucket seats and the console and the different trim on the side and so on.
So you did mention though this has a power bucket seat.
Yes,
driver.
Yeah,
a rare option.
Really rare option for it.
What else for options on this car?
We put in the U.S. air conditioning. It's a Canadian car, but the Canadian car air conditioning was just an under dash unit.
Oh, just an aftermarket thing.
Well, it was GM.
Oh,
but
okay.
But it was under dash. In the U.S., it was all integrated into the firewall and part of the regular heater unit. So
right.
We cut the firewall and put in the U.S. air conditioning system in it.
Were you able to find that like new old stock or new aftermarket kind of thing?
No, I found old cars with the parts.
Wow.
Some of the parts I've had for decades.
Really?
Yeah. Back in, I've had I think 28 of these cars now over the years, and I've put air conditioning into a couple of them.
Wow.
And back in the 70s, early 70s, when I was down in the States, I'd stop by Wreckers and just take a walk around, and I'd pull out air conditioning vents and so on out of these and some of the more rare parts and control systems, put them in a box and mail them home.
So this has been like 40 plus years in the making.
Some of the parts on this have been around that long.
Yeah, no kidding. That's really okay. You said 28 of these.
Yes.
Okay, but you haven't had just 28 cars in total then, right?
Oh,
You've
no.
had, how many cars do you think you've owned?
I don't know. The students asked us that one time of instructors, and I got over 100 cars on my list that I've actually owned.
Wow.
Yeah. Some of them I've owned for only a short period of time. And
they were quick, yeah.
Yeah, I maybe owned them a couple of weeks or something like that, and then something else came along, so I sold that. And some I've owned for a long time, like my Thunderbird.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second too. So Vortec V8, so it's a modern V8 in this thing.
Yes, yeah. It's 1998 350 Vortec out of a truck.
Out of a truck, but you put a carburetor on top of it.
Yes, yeah. It's carbureted. I just wanted to make it look old school and so on.
Okay, yeah. And like power steering?
Power steering, power brakes, power windows, air conditioning. I've got a power trunk for it, release. I haven't put it in yet, but I think I will.
The power popping thing where it take off. Now, the coolest part is what you've done with the wiring in this car.
Oh.
Like, it is sensational. How many hours do you think you've spent?
Oh, I've probably 1,000 plus hours.
1,000 plus hours in the wiring.
Yeah.
To explain, and I'll put a picture of this up on jthomasauto.ca. Jim, you built a board that holds all the new modern wiring.
Well,
that runs everything.
It holds quite a bit.
Yeah.
I put a package tray in the back trunk compartment that's got a body computer in it. And the body computer operates the lights, locks, alarm system, door.
Power windows?
It can, but I've got a separate power window system, so I just kept the factory power window wiring in it.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, I wanted some of the features so that when you approach the car, and hit your key fob, the lights would flash and so on.
Oh, wow. And the thing is, you haven't just ripped this out of some other car.
No, the body computer itself is out of a 2008 Chev truck.
Okay.
Yeah. But then I've made the wiring harness from there. And
That's unbelievable.
there's even things like puddle lamps. You see them on the new cars that shine from the bottom of the mirror and so on. Well, this has it underneath the doors. You open the door and there's an LED that shines down so it's
Really?
onto the ground so you can see where you're stepping. And I've put red interior lights in it. So when you're driving at night, of course, red doesn't bother your night vision. So they're little red LEDs. And they are in the armrests, and they just shine just far enough forward that you can see where the door handles are, and just a faint glow on the side door panels. And underneath the back seat, there's little ones that just shine just down on the carpet.
I mean, they're doing this in new cars all over the place, right?
So I thought, why not do it?
Oh, that's so cool. And you know, the thing is, you do everything. Just looking at your work here, I know nobody's ever going to even see these things. You know, you've got it all hidden. So it's not like it's like a big hole drilled in something and, oh, there's the LED sitting there. You've got it all tucked away so nice. Nobody will ever see this stuff. It'll just appear and work and, you know.
Even the electronics tray that I've got in the trunk is on a hinge. You push it up and there's a couple bolts hold it in place. You can't even tell it's there when it's...
Yeah, you open the trunk, you don't see anything. You'd have to lay on your back inside the trunk looking at the bottom of the package tray to see it.
Right.
Yeah, it's totally hidden, completely out of sight.
That's the way I like, just to make it look completely stock and so on.
It's fantastic.
And even the transmission, it's got a 6-speed manual in it because I like manual transmissions.
Yeah, we talked about that.
And I wanted the overdrive gears in it, plus so that I've got a performance rear end in it. Gives me acceleration.
Yeah,
plus,
you said a 411?
Yeah.
Well, that's you know, super performance. Like, that's tow a house kind of performance.
Right.
But with a 6-speed, you've actually got cruising gears.
That's right. So I'm only doing about 1,400 RPM at 60 miles per hour.
That's the car everybody dreamed of in 1964.
Yes.
Right? It was, you couldn't really do that then. There was only 4 speeds, right?
Right.
So you either picked between performance or economy, or kind of, if you could thought of it, highway or performance, right?
Right.
You just picked your rear end and you got what you got, and that was it. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's a great combination.
Yes, it ever.
And, you know, I've gone through it to make it like a daily driver. So the whole frame has been sandblasted, powder coated. All the suspension has been powder coated. New bushings, new springs.
You said you've got sway bars in the rear of this thing too,
Yeah,
right?
sway bars, performance shocks in it. I've disc brake conversion for the front and so on. So it's going to be every bit as reliable as they were when they brand new, but it handles a lot better.
I bet, hey. What's left to do in the car?
I've still got a couple air conditioning hoses to hook up.
Yep.
Finish a little bit of wiring on the far side and then put the interior panels in.
And that's it. And she's ready. And a wheel alignment, and she's ready to go.
That's right. Yeah. I haven't done the alignment yet because I want all the weight in the car before I do the alignment.
Do that, yeah. Well, I noticed your column's out right now, so that'll get put in, and then you'll be good to go kind of thing.
Yeah, the instrument cluster is all done up. It's got the factory tack in the instrument cluster and so on. And I haven't put it in because there's a little bit of wiring to do under the dash on that side yet, and it's just easier.
With no cluster in there.
With no cluster.
That's unbelievable. And it looks so good with the red and the black. Man, oh man. What a cool car.
That's actually my very first 64 Chev was black with a red interior.
Oh.
That exactly color combination.
Well, there you go. I mean,
I'm reliving my youth.
I think there's a lot of guys who, if they could, you know, pick a car to have when they, you know, that dream car, it is their first car. I think if the first car, just there's something magical about it. It doesn't matter if it was a complete piece of crap. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it was a complete rust bucket, you know, big old boat, you know, beater. Everybody loved their first car for a reason or two.
Oh yeah. Well, it's the memories we had in them.
Yeah.
You know, and I've even got an 8-track player that I've had since 1973.
Really?
Yes, with 8 tracks that I may put in the car later on.
Oh, yeah, you got to do that.
Just for memories, nostalgia.
Yeah, totally.
The biggest problem with that is it's hard to get matchbooks anymore to stick in there to keep the tapes playing.
A lot of those old 8 tracks are starting to get a little crusty inside too. Yeah. But, oh my God, that's funny. That's phenomenal. So, yeah, it's going to be like your first car. Let's go through some of these. Give me, how about a top 5 of your favorite cars? If you had like 100 cars, what are some of the top 5 that you've owned that you go, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have got rid of that one? We'll talk about this Thunderbird in a second. But
Okay. Actually, my 61 Nomad station wagon.
Yeah.
When I got rid of it, I didn't realize how rare those wagons were.
Yeah, I bet.
And I'd love to have that car. It was a beautiful riding car, and just I'd changed the motor in it. It came with a 283. I put a 327 in it, and so it had a little bit more power.
Yep.
But again, it was a highway car, and it was just a beautiful car to drive.
How about through like the 80s and 90s? What were some of your memorable ones then? And you know what? Maybe I'll ask you this first. Let's qualify this for a second. Have you been a guy who has bought, like you've got some old stuff here, right? Some vintage stuff, 50s, 60s, into the 70s. Has that always been your passion, the older stuff? Or have you, like you drive all this new stuff with your job as an automotive journalist. So has that ever prompted you to buy a newer car and wanted that as your toy as well? Or has it always been the old stuff?
Both.
Both? Okay,
Yeah.
both.
I love the old cars. They're easier to work on in many ways.
Yeah.
But when you start putting all these options in, it gets much more difficult. But
Sure.
that's the way I like it. I like some of the brand new vehicles. I just had a Honda Ridgeline, which was a beautiful truck.
Isn't that an awesome
And,
truck?
if I was going to buy one or buy a new vehicle, that's definitely on the top of my list.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. But things like the new Corvette.
Yeah.
If you want a performance vehicle, it's the best bang for your buck out there.
So did that ever inspire you, that like of old and new? Did you ever, after reviewing a car throughout your years as a journalist, did you ever go buy one of anything you drove?
I think so. I know I'm wavering on that, but yeah, like I'm thinking of new vehicles that I bought. Mazda Protege 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just I liked the Mazdas I drove. I went out, was looking for a new vehicle, a little compact vehicle to drive
Yeah.
around town and
Yeah.
so on. Used to slalom at an odd time with the sports car club, and it was a fun car. It was supposedly the slowest class of car out there, but it would, on any given day, it would compete with the fastest cars out there just because it handled so well.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have bought some stuff that you've liked. Not I'll use my my friend Calvin. He calls them BGV, boring grown-up vehicles.
Oh,
There's mostly people that are in this sort of hobby. They've got classic stuff, or they've got cars they'd like, and then they also have a boring grown-up vehicle, a BGV.
Yeah.
But you've probably had a few of those too, here and there, right?
bought a 96 GMC pickup, brand new.
So just a half ton. Yeah.
Yeah, extended cab. It served its purpose well, and so on. I sold it. I bought a used Avalanche.
Oh, yeah.
Just because I had kids growing up and I needed more back seat room and so on.
Yeah.
But I knew about the Avalanche because I'd driven them.
Yes.
So the driving the new one definitely influenced me to buy the
With what you
I
bought later. Yeah. Okay. So we know the Nomad wagon, right? If we keep going, say trying to get to a top 5 of the favorite cars you've owned, pick another one off the top of your head that comes to mind that you just loved.
Oh, my 66 Corvair.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. It was a fun car. It was the 140 horse, 4-speed manual transmission.
Yep.
Just a fun car to drive. And then I decided I wanted to make it a high performance car.
Oh, yeah.
And I ordered parts in from Crown Manufacturing in the States, and I put a mid-engine V8 in it.
Oh, sweet.
And I drove it for several years on the street and just competing with the sports car club.
Wow, that's fun. Yeah. Did they really handle as bad as they always claimed they handled?
No, they didn't.
I didn't think so.
No.
Yeah.
64 and earlier, I think from 61 to 64, they had what they called a swing axle in them, which meant that there was just a joint in the middle and a solid tube out to the tire. So if you went into a corner and the tire dug into something, it would tend to fold underneath the car.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So if you were on, say, soft stuff, it would grab and maybe dig in.
It could, yeah. But for it to dig into something, you pretty well had to have a tire that was way underinflated and so on. Now, at the same time, the Volkswagen Beetle had exactly the same suspension setup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course it did.
It was more driver problem, and maintenance problem than it was the car. And, of course, by the time they corrected that in 65, they went to a suspension which was very similar to what the Corvette had in it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so my 66 Corvair had a Corvette-style suspension in it. It handled very well.
So that Unsafe at Any Speed, documentary or whatever book it was that came out, that probably damaged Chevrolet quite a bit, didn't it?
In that class of car, oh yes, yeah. That's why the Corvair hardly sold anything in 67 to 69, which was the last year of it. And it was replaced by Camaro.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Similar body in many ways with the bulge on the fenders. And,
now that I think about you saying that,
and so on. But it didn't have that economy car. Although you could get the Camaro with a 6-cylinder, very few people ordered it that way.
Yeah, that's probably rare now. That's just like seeing, there was probably more Mustangs with 6 cylinders. That was probably more prevalent, right?
Yeah.
But now it is slightly unusual to see one. I did see one at a car show recently that was really well restored, really well done. Gosh, I can't even remember what color it was, but I just noted that it was like, wow, it was a fastback and a manual transmission car and looked very good. And then he had the hood open and I went, oh, there's a 6-cylinder in here. A lot of guys just rip those out and dump V8s in them, right?
Right, yes. Yeah.
And so to find one that is original the way it was is not as common as it used to be, right? Even though there was lots that were sold, I just find now that 50, 60 years later, a lot of them were abandoned.
Yeah, they've been modified or just junked.
Yeah, right. They used the 6-cylinder as the parts car, and they took the one that had the V8 and restored that one,
right?
So to speak, right?
But it should have been the other way around because the 6-cylinder car usually saw less abuse, so the body was probably in better shape.
Probably, yeah. But there's a numbers matching thing that everybody's always going for too, right?
That's right.
So there's that to it as well. Okay, so the Corvair. Pick another car that was just one of your favorites.
Oh, 87 Nissan pickup.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd have been cool.
Yeah, the V6 5-speed manual transmission. Just wonderful truck. No problems with it whatsoever.
Did it rust to smithereens?
No.
Or you sold it before it rusted?
I had it for 11 years.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
And there was no rust on it whatsoever.
I mean, Nissans and Toyotas, the trucks of that generation were bad, known for rusting. Everything was known for rusting in the 80s, though. I mean, that was the way it was.
Oh, if you went around Detroit, you'd find AMC vehicles with no front fenders on them. They rusted so bad.
Flap in the wind, practically. Yeah. That's a cool little truck, though, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Was the King cab, the one with the little extended on the...
Yes, it was. Yeah. In fact... Ford is just bringing out another truck, brand new, here that'll be out in a month.
The Maverick.
The Maverick.
Yeah,
which is going to be, I'm thinking, similar size to what that little Nissan truck was.
Yeah, I've been reading all about it as much as I can. Just because it's cool to finally have something small again.
Yes.
I think, I know this is kind of getting off topic, but I think that, man, we lost a lot when Ford got rid of the Ranger that used to be.
Yeah.
And I mean, they had to. I understand why. There's crash test regulations they had to meet, and that little guy, it was, when did they end production? 2011. So that body style had gone back a lot of years, like into the 90s, right?
Yes, yeah. But you take a look at the full-size trucks now, and they're bigger than what we had for 3-ton trucks back in the 80s.
Exactly.
And vehicles like the new Ford Ranger and so on are the size of what full-size pickups were back in the 80s.
Yes.
Yes, and small trucks just don't exist anymore.
And
until this Maverick is coming out.
Exactly. And and Dodge hasn't had a small truck for a little while now. The Dakota's been gone for a while, right? Yeah.
But even it grew over the years.
It did. But they weren't fooling anybody. Chevrolet and Ford weren't fooling anybody with the Colorado and the new Ranger, thinking that was a small truck because, like you just said, they're the size that pickups used to be. People still remember that. there's a lot of people I've met out there who still just want a tiny little workhorse truck.
Yes.
The size of the old Ranger or that little Nissan you're talking about that you had.
Well, one of the problems with a full-size truck now is you can't see into the box, and you can't reach over to grab anything in there because they're so tall.
Exactly. And they're a heck of a time to park.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although they've got some amazing park assist options on them.
They do. But you know what? You also are into the $70,000 range when you want to get those park assists. Like you want a full loaded truck.
Yes, yeah.
With all that
70,000 plus.
Exactly.
I've driven trucks that were over 100,000.
I know, exactly. And it's easy to see when rolling around down the freeway.
Yes.
You pass by $100,000 trucks every day driving. And that's eye-bulging to me, I guess, that much money for a half ton. I know they're amazing and they're beautiful, but there is, I believe, still a market for small utilitarian, and I mean, this new Maverick is still going to be a nice vehicle, but, a small basic pickup truck.
Yeah, and I think they start at about 29,000, so you've got, the beginning first-time car buyer or truck buyer could get into that reasonably easy and have a brand new vehicle.
Yeah, that's right. I know there was people that when they learned that the Ranger was leaving, they went out and got one.
Yes,
I knew of people who were like that, who were humming and hawing, and they wanted something small, and once they learned that was leaving in 2011, they bought one because.
But it left here in 2011, but worldwide, Ranger sales continued on all through the years.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you take a look at Mexico or Central America, there's Ranger trucks all over the place in the previous generation.
Yeah.
And the new Ranger truck is wonderful.
Yeah, I've driven it actually once as well, and it was awesome. It was quite car-like, actually.
Yes,
It handled really well, and I was impressed. I really was.
And I have to be honest, the old cars, they look great. The styling and so on is there. They just make you feel good inside, but they don't have the safety features or the handling that the new vehicles have.
Oh, certainly. There is a great video on YouTube, the IIHS 50-year celebration. This is already like 10 years old or more. I think it was 2009. They crashed a 1959 Chevrolet Bel Air against a 2009 Chevrolet Malibu. And there's always that, they don't build cars like they used to, and those cars were big old tanks, and they were strong, and these new ones, they're just made of plastic, blah, 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 blah. And you go watch that video, and your mind will be changed for you. It's really impressive. A, how well the Malibu does, the 09 Malibu, and B, how poorly the 59 Impala does.
Yes,
Really poorly. Like you would have lost some limbs or your life in that accident, and the person in the Malibu, the new car, would have simply opened the door and walked away.
And that's the same as my 64. The 59 Impala or Bel Air is the same basic body.
Yeah, that's right.
So on. So that's something that I have to consider every time I drive it. Mm-hmm. But I drive it limited and with extra care. One, I don't want to hurt the car.
Yeah.
And two, you have to drive for everybody else on the road.
Totally. And I'm the same way. I do have shoulder belts in my 69 Buick, but I mean, there's no retractors or there's nothing else in it. I mean, it's a pillarless car. It's a hardtop too, so a side impact would be terrible in it. All those things. It crosses my mind. I drive it because I think it's like a time machine.
Yeah.
Especially the way mine exists. It's pretty much 100% original, except for a few parts that have had to be replaced along the way, but with original style parts. So it's like getting in and being transported to 1969. But, cars then certainly didn't handle like cars do now.
No. And I've been fortunate to actually be able to see some of the crash tests.
Oh, really?
Yes. And that's interesting. I remember seeing a Mercedes with 50 mile per hour, 3/4 front impact.
50 miles an hour.
Yes. Yeah. And the passenger compartment was completely intact, and the crash test dummies were still seated in their seats.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
Yes.
Because they don't usually test at 50 miles an hour. They test lower than that,
usually
right?
Lower than that, yes.
For the standards that they have to meet,
yeah,
right?
But this was a full-on test by Mercedes. Yeah.
Where was it held?
I'm going to say Blainville. That's where the test facility is in Quebec.
Oh, I would love to go to one of those so badly. Like that was just so cool to see. And did they walk you through everything, how it did afterwards and everything like that?
No, because it takes a lot of time going through all the computer readouts and so on for
I
sensors
see.
and so on.
Yeah.
But we visually got to see the car and so on. I saw another test where Dodge Ram, where it was a half frontal head-on collision.
Yeah.
And so on. The front end of the vehicle is absolutely demolished. The doors all still opened on the truck.
Oh, really? That's awesome. Yeah. That's what you want, right?
Yes.
That part of the, and I think that is the public misconception, is that, this 64 Impala beside us might have been built with a little bit of that in mind, but not a lot, right? And the focus really now is have the rear end, have the front end crumple up to absorb the impact, keep the center of the car strong, the cage around you, to keep the people safe. So sacrifice the car to keep the people alive.
Yeah. They don't realize that even things like the engine and transmission and so on are designed to go underneath the floor pan of the car in a frontal collision so that it doesn't go into the passenger compartment.
Which wasn't necessarily the case, say, when the 64 Impala was put together, right?
Oh, no, it could come back right through the firewall at you.
Yeah, that wasn't... I mean, and then before that yet, when we talk into the 50s, like, say, your Thunderbird over here, I mean, is that a straight steering column on it too, right? There was always that old misconception.
Actually, that's a collapsible. I shouldn't say collapsible. It's a telescopic steering column.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
which is
fascinating.
pretty rare back then.
No kidding. But they were generally in the 50s, a straight rod down to the steering box.
Oh, yeah, it's like a spear.
Yeah, and they were known to take people's heads off, weren't they? Yeah. Or end your life, let's put it that way. Yeah.
Not a good scene.
Not a good scene. And that changed into the late 60s and into the 70s too, right? So they were starting to make some strides.
GM, it was 67 was the first year they put the collapsible steering column in.
So my 69 has a collapsible steering column.
Yes.
Oh, look at that. And shoulder belts. You would break your collarbone because they're just solid attached to the roof, and they clip into a separate clasp, and then you tighten them by hand. Yeah. But I think it was either the first or second year for shoulder belts.
But better to have a broken collarbone than
a broken face.
Yeah,
into the dashboard
or spine, because just the lap belt held you, and the rest of your body went forward.
Exactly. Yeah, I'd still take the broken collarbone. Okay, so I digress. We kind of got off topic, but that's okay. We were talking about that little Nissan truck you bought.
Yes.
So that's probably like, I don't know, between the Nomad and that's probably like the fourth or so one. How about another favorite?
Oh, well, it'd have to be my 64 Chev, the very first one.
I think we talked about that one.
Yeah. That one, I ended up putting a real high horsepower 427 V8 in it.
Really?
Yes. People in the Chevy industry would know it as an L88.
Okay.
Which was rated at 430 horsepower.
Oh, my God.
The rating on it was downplayed for insurance purposes.
So it wasn't... Oh, wow. Okay.
No, it was probably closer to 550 to 600 horsepower.
Holy smoke.
Yeah. You could order them in Corvette. When you ordered it with a Corvette, you can only get a manual transmission. You couldn't get a heater, and you couldn't get a radio.
Not even a heater?
No. It was basically a race engine in disguise.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I ordered a crate engine, and we put it in the car, and it was a 4-speed. So, it was, I like a sleeper, a car that looks nice. People think, well, it'd be reasonably fast, but boy, does it go.
Really? No kidding. That's pretty cool. Let's take a chance to talk about this 57 Thunderbird. So where did this car come from?
This one's out of Palm Springs.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so I looked high and low before I bought this one. I had a white one before this.
Did you?
And it was fairly rusty.
What year?
57.
Again, okay.
Yeah, It was actually the opposite of this. It was white with a red interior.
Oh, okay.
This one's red with a white interior.
Yep.
So I had it, and I worked on it for 7 years, redid the body, replaced the lower half of the door skins, lower half of the fenders, and so on, floor pans in it, and so on. And so it was a pretty solid driving car. It had a 292 V8 with a 3-speed manual.
Yeah.
And so on. And I knew whatever I did with the car, it was never going to be a real high dollar car because it wasn't completely original and so on. And it had a lot of rust. So I was looking for a better car. So in 83, I hopped on that motorcycle right there beside you.
The BMW, okay.
And I went down to Texas, and there's a gentleman by the name of Amos Minter down there that deals in baby Thunderbirds.
Okay.
And I looked at about 20 cars he had there. I looked at about another 30 or 40 in the Dallas area.
Whoa.
And to see what was available. And then I rode over to California, and I looked at about another 50 there.
So out of all those,
Yeah.
this was the one you wanted?
I had about 3 or 4 that I was ready to make an offer on, type thing. I came back, and I knew this car. The owner brought it from Palm Springs to Saskatoon. And I knew the owner. In fact, I'd actually worked on it for him a few times. So I knew exactly what condition the car was in. And he'd often said he'd never sell the car. And we were out at the stock car track one night, and I was about to make an offer down into the States. And I said to him, "When are you going to sell me that car?" And he says, "Tonight's your lucky night."
No way.
So I didn't have to bring one back from the States. It had already been brought back.
That still would have been a hell of a trip, to go
yeah.
see all these Thunderbirds and travel around the States. So
Yeah.
still fun.
Oh, yeah, it was great. And like I say, there was, 3, 4, 5 cars that I was seriously considering bringing back.
Yeah.
But I knew this car came from Palm Springs. His mother-in-law was in Palm Springs, so that's why there was a connection from there.
Gotcha.
It had no rust in it whatsoever. And it had been painted many times. Yeah, the original owner was a lady, and she had the hard top and the soft top for it. The soft top she took out and she put under her porch, and it just kind of rusted and the material disintegrated.
Yeah,
there.
right.
And in the summertime, she put the hard top on, and she put air conditioning in it in 1958. It's an under-dash unit, but the date tags are still there and so on. And in the wintertime, when it was cooler in Palm Springs, she'd take the top off and she'd drive just as a convertible.
Okay. Yeah, because really it's just too hot in the summer.
It's too hot in the summer, so that's why she had the air conditioning.
But in the winter, it's a nice temperature to have the top off. Okay,
Yes,
that makes sense.
So
yeah.
the opposite of what we have.
No kidding.
Yeah. So, but the paint fades because it's sitting outside, and
Was it garage kept or was
no,
it outside?
It was an outside car.
It was an outside car? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it'd be taken down to Mako or a similar shop and sprayed.
$29 paint job. And
Exactly. The only thing that wasn't painted were the lights and the bumpers. The chrome on the side, the little emblems and so on, they were all painted.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yes. Yeah. Under the hood had been painted. The air cleaner was painted. The firewall, everything. The wiring harness and so on. And it sounds terrible, but it actually protected all the parts underneath.
Oh, really?
So I spent hours and hours with lacquer thinner and a rag cleaning this paint off all these parts. And it's got the original finish on many of the parts on it.
So it is, what color is this red called? Do you know?
It's called flame red. It's the original color.
Original
for the car.
color. Has it been repainted now again to be flame red? Like,
Yes.
is this a newer paint job on here?
The paint on this here, the clear is new.
Oh.
Okay. There's a base coat and a clear coat on it.
Yeah, okay.
And the base coat, a couple years ago, 3 years ago, I guess, I was hit by a lady.
Oh, no.
Yes. And put a wrinkle in the front fender.
Gotcha.
So had to paint the front fender, and there was a little scratch in the door, so I had to paint the door as well on the passenger side. And then after it was fixed, SGI took a look at the car and said, well, we'll clear coat those panels.
Yes.
And then he took a look and said, we'll stop at the body seam. Well, on these cars, the fenders are all welded on, so there is no body seam.
Yeah.
So he said, oh, well, we'll have to stop at the end of the car. But then there's no body seam there. So he walked around the whole car and said, the only things separate are the trunk, the hood, and the driver's door that we don't have to clear. Everything else has to be clear. So I said, well, we'll clear the whole car. And I paid a little extra to have the hood.
The whole thing cleared.
Cleared again. But most of it, the paint is from 1985.
1985.
Yeah.
So when you got it back, that was the time between when you bought it and the 1985 is when you kind of got all the paint stripped off of it and then back down and painted to its original color.
Yeah. I bought it in 1984.
Okay, yeah.
It took me 1 year.
A whole year.
Yeah, but I'd spent 7 years on the white one. I knew where to get parts. I knew exactly how to take everything apart and so on.
Sure.
And I started in the time I got it, and I just, day after I got it, I started taking it apart.
Really? Yeah. So interior is white. Did you have to redo any of that?
The seat cover is still original in it.
Really?
Yes, yeah, and it's about due for a replacement.
Okay.
Yeah. But you can get a lot of parts through Ford for it still.
Really?
Yes.
That's impressive.
One of the things Ford said is that it's been a good public relations thing for the company. Mm-hmm. It's a very recognizable car.
One of the most recognizable Fords out there.
Yeah.
Like probably top 5. Mm-hmm. You know, there's quite a few, but
yeah.
Of course the Mustang and all that. But this is the other one, right?
Even little kids come up and they seem to know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a Thunderbird.
And it's still used in many modern ads.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, it's a sensational car. So engine-wise, have to do anything there?
It's mostly original engine.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to replace a front damper on it. It broke after many years. And I was going out to a parade, and I felt a slight vibration in the car, and then a loud knock. Ooh. And here the front damper actually broke off the front of the engine. So,
oh, wow.
It took me better part of a year to get the car back on the road.
Really?
Yeah, because the way the engine is designed, the part that was broken off was still way in the engine, and I didn't want to damage anything else.
Oh, boy.
And the front damper is unique to 567 Thunderbird.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I paid $1,200 for a new or a used damper.
Holy.
But it was that or not drive it.
Well, yeah, and you can't do that. Now, I know there's some Thunderbirds that have some pretty special features, right?
Yes.
There were some pretty unique options in this year, like the dial-o-matic seat.
Right.
I've read about that, where you basically set your power seat, and it's a power bench seat. It can be a power bench seat.
Right.
To a number. You kind of memorize the number. It was a dial.
Right. There's a number and a letter. There's
a number, letter.
Two
yes. Yes. And if you knew that your favorite position was A3 or B6, you set it to that, and it would move the seat to that point.
Right.
And then the other driver would pick B2 or C4, whatever, right? And move theirs that way. That's a really, really rare option.
It is, because they only had it in the first part of 57. Mm-hmm. And they discovered there was a problem with it in that a short driver would have the seat ahead and up. And if the car stalled and you tried to start it, the seat would automatically move to the exit position. So it would move all the way back and you couldn't reach the pedals. Now, being a tall person, I can't imagine that because I've got the seat back all the time and I'm still cramped inside the car. But I guess there are small people that had trouble with this. So,
and then they'd stall the car, be a manual.
Yeah.
And then they would have to sit there with the ignition on, waiting for the seat to get back up to the front.
Right.
So they could put the clutch in.
That's right.
Basically, right?
Yes.
And get the car started again. Okay. So power seat in this one or not?
Power seat, power windows. Yeah.
And I don't remember. Was there any options, town and country radio at all?
Town and country radio.
Yeah.
It's a signal-seeking radio. It's got a volumatic radio, which means that they put an extra tube in it, believe it or not, so that as the engine RPM went up, the volume of the radio went up. So technically, the faster you drive, the higher the volume of the radio.
That's like a modern car thing that they've done, right?
Well, it is, yeah.
But back in 1957.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Power steering, power brakes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And then the air conditioning. Now, In this case, it's aftermarket, right?
Yes, yeah.
From 58, so it's just about as old as the car anyways. Could you get AC?
No, you couldn't get AC.
Couldn't get AC in the car.
No.
So it just wasn't an option yet from Ford anyways. I guess they figured it was a convertible. What the heck do you need AC for?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. You could get AC in the full-size cars, but not in the Thunderbird.
Right.
And
dual tops, that's an option too, right?
actually, they were sold without a top.
They were sold without a top.
Yes. Now, I don't know if anybody ever bought one without a top other than maybe some racers.
Right.
But the base price was the car without a top, and you could get what they considered 3 tops. One was just a tonneau cover that snapped on or over the passenger compartment.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm aware of that one. Yeah.
And I had, my white one had that feature on it, but I didn't like all the snaps that were in the trim around the doors and so on. So I didn't want that in this car. And then there was the soft top, which stores behind the seat, and the hard top, which is retractable, or I shouldn't say retractable, it's a lift-off.
Right.
Hard top.
It's actually overhanging from the garage roof on the other side of us here.
Yeah, I've only had it on the car a couple times.
Portholes in that top.
Yes, yeah, but that's not supposed to have portholes in
I was
that
going to
top.
say, wasn't that a 56 thing?
56 was when the portholes came in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 57, most of them had portholes, but you could order a top without the portholes.
Oh,
still.
okay.
And if you got a top without the portholes, it came with a little red Thunderbird emblem on the side of the top. And if you look up there, that's got the little red emblem on the side of the top.
Yeah, it does. And the portholes.
The previous owner bought the kit and put the portholes in it.
Oh, okay. So you're probably actually a little angry at that, aren't you?
Well, if you've got the top on the car, the portholes are really nice to have.
Yeah.
Because it's a huge blind spot back there.
It's a very wide pillar
Yes.
that makes up the back end of that top. But on the other hand, I'll bet you it's pretty rare to have a top with no windows.
Yes, yeah. But I could put it back to having no windows. It's a fiberglass top.
Oh, okay.
So, it could be fiberglassed in and refinished. And
Could do some work with that.
But like I said, I've had it on the car a couple times. One was for a wedding, one was for a trip to Calgary, and so on. But
I got to say that, this is so close to my dream car. To be completely honest, my dream car is the 56. And I like the Continental kit on the back. And I really like the 56. Now, this is still a beautiful interior, but the 56 had the transparent dashboard.
Yes,
So you could see through the speedometer, out the other side of the speedometer, and then through the windshield, which I think is just really fascinating too. And 56 had, now does this have a tack in it?
yes,
It does have a tack. Okay, so they all had them at that point,
Yeah,
right?
they were cable drive tack. They drive off the distributor on the engine
Yep.
and back just like a speedometer drive.
So I think I don't know, I guess it's just, I like the Continental kit, but I heard that actually was kind of a bit of an issue for these cars, right?
Well, it was. The 56 is about 6 inches shorter in the body, and then the Continental kit was hung on the back. And because all that weight was way out at the back with that spare tire, the handling suffered on it.
Did it really?
So that's one of the rationales for the 57 became a little longer in the back. It's actually the same length as the 56 overall now. But
Okay.
There's no Continental kit. They put the spare tire back into
So
the
you actually
trunk.
gain a little bit of trunk space in this.
The trunk is actually fairly usable in it.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I can put camping gear in there and a big cooler and so on and go for a weekend.
Well, and I'm just staring at the back of it now. I mean, 57, we were really in the space race, and that was just the styling, right? And it was
fins are in.
fins are in, and probably my favorite part of the whole car is the tailpipes, because the exhaust exits out the back corners of the bumper.
Yes, yeah. Instead of below the car.
Instead of below the car, just some boring old, angled tailpipes or straight pipes or whatever. And both 56 and 57 did this, where they came out the corners of the bumper.
Yeah, there's not many vehicles around that had exhaust out the bumpers themselves.
No, but it looks so. And of course, the taillights themselves are that rocket style thing where it looks like a jet engine or looks like a rocket engine kind of thing. So the whole thing, is really styled after that space age sort of look.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts on the car that are common with 57 Ford. For example, the whole instrument cluster.
Oh, okay.
Is common. The gauges themselves are unique to the Thunderbird because the speedometer goes higher because it's a sports car.
Yeah.
And the tachometer, and there's actual gauges rather than idiot lights in the or warning lights, I should say.
Yeah.
Tail lights are the same. Park lights are the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The suspension is the same as 53, 54 Ford.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They used a lot of the same pieces. But what they did do is, like, what's under the hood of this one?
This is the 312. It's the first year for the Holley 4150 4-barrel carburetor.
Cool.
Yeah, and factory dual exhaust on it. They all came with dual exhaust. It's got 3-speed automatic, but it's a Ford-O-Matic, they call it, and it only shows 2 gears on the shifter.
Oh.
Yes, so if you pull it into low range, it starts out in first gear. When you hit about 25 miles per hour, it will automatically shift to second gear.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you put it into drive, then it'll shift up to third gear.
But what if you just take off from a dead stop and drive?
It starts in second gear.
Oh. So if you really want to get a hop on the green light, you pull it down into low.
No, you don't get a hop on the green light. You're talking at the drag strip now.
How, I've never driven something like this. How does it actually accelerate and handle? Because this was considered a sports car for 1957. If you really look at it, it's not that big of a car. It's certainly smaller than this Impala sitting next to us.
Actually, they're both about the same weight.
Are they really?
Yes. The frame on this thing is 1/4-inch plate all the way through.
Oh, it's heavy duty then.
Yes.
Because it's smaller in size, though.
Oh, yes, much smaller.
It's shorter.
It's 3 feet shorter.
Even lower to the ground by a little bit. Maybe a little bit narrower, right?
Right.
So, but this was considered a sports car. So, does it drive at all like a sports car?
It doesn't handle the corners like a sports car.
Right.
The sway bar on the front is the size of my little finger, and so
And there's nothing on the back. Yeah.
No, there's nothing on the back.
Is it leaf springs on the back?
It is.
It's a leaf springs. Yeah.
But it's as an everyday driver, it's quite reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And acceleration wise, it moves.
Acceleration wise, I've had it out at the drag strip.
Really?
Yeah. I turned 14.2 quarter mile with it, shifting at 4,000 RPM.
Wow.
So I didn't want to rev it faster just because I'm not into blowing up engines.
No, especially not like this. Yeah.
When it's the original engine to the car. and
Yeah.
So I figure that's pretty reasonable speed for one of these here.
Did they give you a 0 to 60 time out of that at all?
They did, but I forget what it was.
That's still pretty good, though. I mean, because for years after this Thunderbird came out, like 55 Thunderbird came out, they branded the Thunderbird V8.
Yes.
Right? Like that was what was put into the rest of the Ford lineup should you have ordered it, right?
Right. That was the high performance.
That was the high performance, but it was named the Thunderbird V8.
Yes. Yeah. And there were 2 higher horsepower engines in this one as well.
Oh, really?
Yes. This one's got the single 4-barrel.
Okay.
And then you could get the dual 4-barrel version.
Whoa.
In it. And if you really wanted to spend the big bucks, you could get the supercharged.
The forced induction one.
Yes.
Hemmings just had an article about that not too long ago. An orange 57.
Ah, yes. I missed one in Edmonton many years ago, and an auction.
Really?
Yes, and I should have bought it. They claimed 204 of these that were supercharged, and the body on it was absolutely terrible.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was rusted and so on, but you can get good bodies.
Yep.
And to have the frame with the serial number and the data plate and everything on it, those cars are selling, $200,000 plus.
Yeah.
Just for a supercharged one.
Well, even this 57, the way it is worth a good amount of money. Let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've got it insured for a good amount of money.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Because they are really sought after now. They have gone up in value. Not all classic cars have, but I mean the Thunderbirds really have. They absolutely have.
Well, they seem to have a timeless appeal. It's there's always moments when I'm driving the car. One night I'm driving downtown. I stop at a light. 2 people slide into the car. Just open the door and slide in.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. They just wanted to see the car so bad.
They did that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Another time I'm out in Kelowna, and a friend and I are driving, and there's a crosswalk. And there's this little old lady with double canes, and she's walking across the crosswalk. So I stop, and she ambles across. She gets right in front of the car. She stops. She turns towards the car, looks at the car up and down. She straightens up her back, and she kind of struts across. And I'm thinking, what memories does she have?
There's no back seat, but that probably didn't stop her.
No.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I mean,
But even little kids love the car.
Yeah.
And it's low to the ground so they can see in, where, if you go to a cruise weekend or whatever and you look at the cars, you got to hold the kids up to see in so many of the cars. This one, they can walk right up and they look inside, so they think it's neat.
I've always loved these. I've always had a thing for the Thunderbirds, especially the baby birds, But and it's a great color combination, and it's did you have to re-chrome everything on this?
Yeah, I pretty well went through everything. There's a couple of the emblems are new.
Okay.
It was much cheaper to just get the new ones, and they're still sold in the Ford box with the Ford part number on them.
Oh, okay. So they're legit Ford parts.
Yeah.
They're not knockoffs from wherever else.
No.
Yeah.
No. I've still got the original ones.
Oh, really?
Off the car. But it was just, rather than re-chroming something for, let's say, $100, I could get the original part or a replacement part for $25.
Well, that just makes sense.
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah, for sure.
All the stainless, polished it and so on, and the chrome was all redone. And
oh man, this car has been, like I say, in a musical, in parades. It's been in a music video. It's been a lot of places.
Yeah, Great West had it in an ad way back when they first started.
Really?
Yes, yeah. We put it in the Western Development Museum, in the old garage in the Western Development Museum.
Oh, really?
And there were cases of Great West product stacked up around. And so
That's pretty cool.
yeah, so just different things.
It's kind of neat how you've got a whole bunch of different interests, Jim, because there's how many BMW bikes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a Triumph over there, probably more, 7 or 8, whatever it is. And you've got a 57 Ford Thunderbird, kind of night at the hop, sort of, you could call it, the grease kind of look or that. And then you've got the 64 here too, it's more of a muscle car.
Yeah.
You kind of like it all, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
I love all kinds of cars, and I don't care what condition they're in. It doesn't have to have shiny paint on it and so on. I like original. I like modified. There's one of my former students I met here about 5 blocks from here. We were out on a walk one night. He's got a Bonneville Racer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so he's had it down to the salt flats 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
And it's an amazing car.
Well, and then your El Camino is certainly a daily driver, right? Never been restored, it doesn't look like.
No, it's had work done to it, but it's never been restored.
Yeah. So it's just out in the driveway kind of car, run around town sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
And, these two in here are beautiful, shiny, but, everything.
The El Camino will eventually get there,
Yeah.
but, it's I'm into doing all the mechanical work first before I do the body work and so on, and I want to do
smart.
the suspension up on the El Camino first.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, those can be really tuned up, can't they?
Oh, yes, yeah, there's lots of parts because it's the same as the Chevelles.
Right.
And the El Camino was classed as a Chevelle back then.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, one of the big differences was the frame was different at the back because of the box. It was the same as the station wagon frame, and it was fully boxed to handle the load. So it's actually a stronger frame than the Chevelles.
That makes sense. Sense. So, okay, let's go right back to the first thing we talked about here in Bald Tires. We have this Jello kit with all these collectible wheels. Have you also been a collector of other automotive paraphernalia things? Has that been a thing of yours too?
Yeah. I've got in my room downstairs, there's little Matchbox cars, some Meccano.
Oh, yeah.
Disney or Lesney cars.
Oh, yeah.
I've got some tin toys and so on, that type of thing that I've collected. My sons have been into Lego, so they've built Lego cars, that's sitting on display.
That's what I did as a kid too. I'd buy Lego car kits, or I'd have enough car kits, and then I'd make my own cars and all kinds of stuff like that too.
Yeah.
So
I collect old literature and so on. Some of the press kits. I got rid of many of the press kits because they just took up so much room. But I've got a few. I've got a press kit from 2002 GM Powertrain Tour.
Oh, cool.
Which we were down in California, and it was amazing. We drove and rode in everything you can imagine that was GM, had GM powertrains. You know, a forklift with GM powertrains. And they had us lifting pallets of engine blocks with the forklift. What they didn't tell you is that all the engine blocks were made out of styrofoam and just painted gray to look like original ones.
So if you dumped it over, you didn't dump an engine on the floor?
That's right, yeah. But we're in a man lift, 125 feet in the air. You know, it's got a 15,000-pound counterweight on it.
Wow.
You're up there and it sways a little bit and you're moving like 6 feet back and forth, but the view is amazing.
Oh, cool.
Ron Fellows is a racer that's been on road race tracks, offshore boat racing and so on. He took us out in a boat he had, twin engine Vortec 6-liter engines.
Whoa.
In a cigarette-style boat.
Wow.
It was offshore racing. It seated 4 inside. Half-inch thick fiberglass. The hatch came down on top of you and it was bolted in. Took 2 people to drive it. One operated the steering and the throttles, and the other person operated the ballast tanks. And they could scoop water up from underneath the boat and load it into forward tanks or back tanks and side to side, and they could dump it just as quick.
Huh.
And so as they got into real choppy offshore waves, we were out on a small lake that was maybe 2.5 miles across.
Yeah.
We'd hit 120 miles per hour
Whoa.
halfway across the lake.
Holy smoke.
In a boat. Yeah.
That's flying.
And it's designed so that if it hit a wave and went under, the whole boat would go under and it'd just come straight back out
up.
again. Yeah. And you're in this sealed cockpit.
like a diving submarine kind of.
Yes, pretty
Right?
well.
Yeah.
We were on an airboat like you see in the Everglades type
Oh, sure.
thing.
Yeah, with the big prop on the back.
Yeah, with twin 8-foot counter-rotating props driven by a 454 Chev engine.
Cool.
You know, and we're on 3 of us sitting on the top seat of it, where the driver is down in front, a little lower. And we went across an island out there at 50 miles per hour. That we didn't even slow down for the island and brush and so on. we were talking about it, and he said when he first made it, they were paving the road out in front of his place, and they had the road blocked off after they'd finished paving it. They hadn't put the lines on yet, so he took it out on the highway. Yeah, and he's doing 50 miles per hour on the highway with this airboat just running on the nylon sliders on the bottom.
Oh my gosh. That's fascinating. I mean, like, that would have been an incredible tour of that. That's you've seen some stuff that I think a lot of car people, guys and gals, dream of seeing, you know?
I've been very lucky.
Yeah. You know, factory tours, those experiences, driving the stuff you've driven. You know, for a short while, I've worked at a couple of dealerships and gotten just a small taste of driving some new stuff, you know, before it was delivered to the dealership, you know, pre-production stuff.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so cool. But you've done a ton of that, you know, and seen all that. That's pretty fun. That's, you know, talk about a car guy. I mean, you've got this stuff in here, you got the bikes, and you've been writing about cars for forever. So
Yes, well, oil runs in my veins.
I guess, eh? Thank you so much for joining me. This has been
you're welcome,
a fantastic trip. You know, if you're listening, by the way, right now, check out pictures of the 57 Thunderbird and the 64 Impala. They're going to be up on jthomasauto.ca, and we'll show you what we were talking about throughout all that. But Jim, if people are again looking for more things you've written, you said Halifax is
the Chronicle
Chronicle there, yeah. And where else?
Winnipeg Free Press.
Okay, good. Yeah. Some good places to find where what you've written about as well.
If you search for Jim Kerr Automotive, you'll find all kinds of stuff coming up, because I do a lot of technical articles as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay. Thanks again. We'll have to do this again sometime, talk some more about some of these bikes and stuff too. So
sounds great.
Okay. And thank you for listening, by the way. Subscribe and follow along, because of course there's a Bald Tires episode that comes out every week. I'm Jay Thomas. Thanks for listening to Bald Tires.